Thank you very much, Louisa. It's great to be here today, folks. Great to join you here at Agile Tour Vilnius. I've been in Lithuania this is my third time, I think now. One time I was here doing some coaching with a company, and then I was at Agile Day Kaunas. Sorry, I can never pronounce that correctly with my accent, last year. And I do enjoy coming back here every possible opportunity. If anyone was in Nisha's previous session, she asked you to turn to the person next to you and tell them your name and an interesting fact about yourself. I thought she was going to sabotage my icebreaker for today, but mine is slightly different. So if you have someone next to you, turn to the person next to you and tell them a really boring fact about yourself that's not interesting at all. So mine, for example, would be I buy my socks from Amazon, as you can probably tell if you look at them. So turn to the person next to you, tell them your name and a really boring fact about yourself. And they'll give you 30 seconds. Okay, hopefully you now know something really boring about everyone else in the audience. I discovered in Nisha's session that my interesting fact wasn't actually that interesting at all. I couldn't think of an interesting one. So our topic today is how to win at Zombie Kanban. I'm going to give you an easy 5-step guide for how you can win at doing Zombie Kanban. I did a poll before this, and I noticed that 22 out of 33 people who responded are doing Scrum. So this could be interesting. I think there were only about 2 or 3 maybe doing Kanban. So my clicker is not doing anything. There we go. So my name is Darren. I'm a Kanban trainer with an organization called Pro Kanban. You'll hear a little bit more about that later on. And earlier this year, I set up my own little side hustle business to offer Kanban training and coaching to organizations. But my day job is as a lead delivery manager with the London Borough of Hackney. A delivery manager, of course, is like a Scrum Master, but they have to do even more of the stuff that no one else on the team wants to do. I love the job title, Delivery Manager. So I live near Belfast in Northern Ireland, up there. And obviously the London Borough of Hackney is in, obviously, London. But fortunately, I only have to do that commute very occasionally, or it would be a very long and very awkward commute into work. So that's enough about me. Why should you care about any of this Zombie Kanban stuff? Some of you will have heard of Zombie Scrum. I think there's actually a talk on it online tomorrow by one of the guys who wrote this book. They're called The Liberators. They have written a book on Zombie Scrum. They've cunningly called it the Zombie Scrum Survival Guide, but it's just to entrap poor, unsuspecting victims into how to actually do Zombie Scrum. I'm hoping they're not watching this now as well. There's no equivalent instruction manual here, folks, for how to do Zombie Kanban. So that's why I'm here today, to tell you how to win at doing Zombie Kanban. I'll give you an easy 5-step guide. You can guarantee that in no time at all, you're going to become a master of doing Zombie Kanban. So let's dive right in. Step number one to doing Zombie Kanban. First, you have to remember, Kanban is just another software development process or method. It's exactly like Scrum. And if for some reason some of you here have never heard of Scrum, Scrum, of course, describes how to develop software without having any kind of a plan. And it also describes how you develop software while having lots of meetings where people stand up all the time. That's what Scrum is, a software development process. And apparently there's this document called the Scrum Guide. It claims to tell you how to do Scrum correctly, but Come on, no one's ever read the Scrum Guide because it's just too boring for words. You folks already know how to develop software, don't you? All you have to do is exactly the same as you've done with Scrum. All you do is read a few articles on Medium, watch a few YouTube videos, and you're good to go. If you can do Scrum, you can do Kanban. It's the same thing, really. It's just about developing software. So this could not be any easier. Just remember that Kanban is just another software development methodology. So that's our step one. On to step two. Step two. Now, everyone knows that in order to successfully do Agile, you have to use Jira. Many of us have probably been on Scrum teams where the use of Jira made the difference between the success or failure of the team. Jira just drove us so far towards success. Now, Kanban's no different from that. In fact, Jira makes it tremendously easy for us to get started with Kanban. Hello, Team Hood, folks. Hopefully my animation works here, so watch this. Look how easy it is to get started with Kanban and Jira. It's just a few clicks. And you even get your project name wrong sometimes. Create project, just a few clicks, and voila. We're already doing Kanban. It's almost like magic. And it only took 20 seconds, folks. And we already have all the steps we need here for doing software development, don't we? We have to do, in progress, and done. That's enough for anyone. You couldn't possibly need any more than that. So we're only about 8 minutes in here, and we've already given you 2 easy steps that you need to do to win at Zombie Kanban. Step 2, creating your to-do, in progress, and done board in Jira. That's a surefire way to make sure you're becoming a master of Zombie Kanban. Step 3. Step 3 is move my slide on, please. There we go. It's good. Thank you. Step 3 is pay absolutely no attention to your metrics at all. Now, if you've hung around boring Kanban people in the past, you're bound to have heard them use phrases like cycle time or work in progress, or even Monte Carlo forecasting, whatever that is something about the weather, who knows. But in Zombie Kanban, you don't have to worry about any of this stuff at all. Metrics in Kanban are just for production line workers in a factory. They're just for statistics nerds as well. No one else really cares. No one needs to understand that stuff. So when you're doing your Zombie Kanban, be brave. Ignore all this stuff about metrics. You don't need to know it. It's not like we're working in a Toyota factory on a production line, is it? Software and product development is an art. It's not a science. And we can't predict anything at all about the future. So if your stakeholders ask you, when will it be done? What's your answer going to be? It will be done when it's done. So in Zombie Kanban, this is your perfect answer to it will be done. When will it be done? Step 3, metrics are not for true aficionados of Zombie Kanban. 3 steps already out of 5. Step 4. Step 4 is metrics for the win. Metrics are great. Haven't said that metrics have no place in Zombie Kanban. If you do decide to use them, it's vitally important that you take every possible opportunity to measure your team. And make sure you come down on them like a ton of bricks or berate them when their metrics fail to measure up to the standards that your management has set. If they're not good enough, tell them so. So for a Zombie Kanban team to be successful, you as their Scrum Master or Manager, Delivery Manager, you absolutely have to obsess over the cycle time of every single item that goes through their Jira board. And you have to ensure that your daily stand-ups and your retrospectives cover nothing apart from metrics. Every single stand-up has to be looking at metrics. But even more importantly, to be successful at Zombie Kanban, you have to share those metrics upwards to your management. Even if you don't really understand them, you share them to your managers anyhow, because that's just what we do in Zombie Kanban. And you share them with your stakeholders so that they can all be aware of how badly your team is performing, and they can all have a go at them. So step number 4 of Zombie Kanban is metrics for the win. And believe it or not, we're already at step number 5 of 5 here, folks. You didn't expect this Kanban stuff to be this easy, really, did you? Step number 5 of Kanban. Some of you might have heard this thing said, start with where you are now. So no matter how much of a dumpster fire your current situation is, Kanban says you must not, under any circumstances, attempt to make any kind of major change to that process. You can only improve by making small incremental changes or marginal gains, as we heard earlier today. Apparently, this is actually written down somewhere in some official guide to Kanban. And just like you have to follow the Scrum guide without changing anything at all in it, and if you do change anything, you can't call it Scrum. It's the same with Kanban. You absolutely must follow the rules of Kanban. So if you're in a hole, just keep digging lots of smaller holes, and hopefully eventually you'll tunnel your way through the earth and make your way out the other side. So there we have it, folks. 5 easy steps to become a master of Zombie Kanban. So I bet you didn't think it would be that fast, but now all you have to do is pay me €200 each, and you too can have your Kanban Master Certified badge. You came here today, you didn't think you'd be getting a certification as well, but it's easy, folks. You're a Kanban Master Certified in 5 easy steps. It's simple. But no good salesperson would leave you without a bonus, a free bonus tip. We've all been in this situation where our organizations decide to do Agile or Agile transformation. It's the T word, which of course, Agile transformation means we force all our teams to do Scrum, whether they want to or not. And the Agile transformation starts off wonderfully. All our Scrum Masters get to go on Scrum training, but never our developers, since that's too expensive. We put all our Scrum ceremonies in place, and then we fire the starting gun, and absolutely nothing really happens. Our team members just get fed up with the endless meetings of Scrum. Well, fear not, I have good news for you folks today. With Zombie Kanban, you can ditch all these boring Scrum meetings. You don't need them anymore. And you no longer have to work in sprints. No more endless 4-hour sprint planning meetings. No more fun retrospectives. Sorry, Chris Stone. Retrospectives can be fun. So this sounds like paradise, doesn't it? No sprint planning, no retros. It's great. Absolutely fantastic. And there's more. The list goes on. There's no sprint goals. There's no story points. There's no velocity. There's no burn down charts. What more could anyone want? And Scrum values, well, who needs those? Zombie Kanban is wonderful. In Zombie Kanban, you need no commitment. You need no focus. You need no openness, no respect, and no courage. Wonderful. You have to make no effort whatsoever. It's fantastic. And what more could any team want than that? So if Scrum has burned you folks out, why not join us in our crusade for Zombie Kanban to take over the world? So this really couldn't be any easier. How to win at Zombie Kanban? Just follow my simple 5-step guide, and you're guaranteed to be successful in your Kanban journey. So that's the end of my talk. Any questions? Okay. I'm obviously being sarcastic, and I'm exaggerating a lot here, folks. But most of us have probably experienced zombie Scrum at some point in the past. I've seen zombie Scrum many times, but I've also seen zombie Kanban like this many times. As I've moved through various organizations, you see the same thing over and over again. And zombie Scrum in some ways has gone towards destroying the reputation of Agile, and zombie Kanban contributes to the same thing. So what do we want to do if we want to win at actual Kanban, or angelic Kanban? A simple 5-step guide to win at real, actual Kanban. You can implement these 5 steps, folks, if you want to. Don't do the other 5, please. But make a start in implementing Kanban on your teams if it's the right thing for your team to do, and you'll deliver real outcomes and real results. First things first, Kanban is not a software development method. This is the first thing you need to recognize. And of course, Scrum is not a software development method either. It's a product development framework. In the same way, Scrum never tells you how to actually develop software. Or if it does, I've never read it. Kanban doesn't tell you how to develop software either. You do software whatever way you do software. So if Kanban isn't a software development method, then what actually is it? Let's look at a document that describes what it is. This document is called the Kanban Guide. It's very short, and it really succinctly describes what real Kanban should be. What does it say? Kanban is not that. Kanban is a strategy for optimizing the flow of value through a system, and it uses a visual pull-based system. Nice words, but what does that actually mean? What is a strategy? A strategy is a general plan to achieve one or more long-term goals under overall conditions of uncertainty. And for once, Wikipedia actually gets something right. Okay, so we know Kanban is a strategy, but what is the actual strategy or plan of Kanban? The strategy of Kanban is to optimize value by optimizing flow. Now, achieving the optimal flow of value through our system or process, it should result in us delivering optimal value to our organizations and also to our stakeholders. Now note that it never says we want to maximize flow through our process. Any process can maximize flow by just throwing resources at it or throwing people at it. But is that an optimal outcome for the organization? Well, no, it's not. If we have unlimited people to allocate to a process, it means our organizations go bankrupt because we've overspent. So it's all about optimizing the flow for what's good for our stakeholders, but also what's good for our companies and organizations. Now, we could go a lot deeper into this today, but it's getting close to the end of the day, folks. We're all somewhere down here, I think, at this point of the day. And the effect of coffee is starting to wear off, I think, by now. So let's not go really deep into this today, but let me just signpost you towards some resources that might help you increase your understanding of Kanban. The first one I've already mentioned is the Kanban Guide. It's quite high level, it's quite short, but it's a really good introduction to some of the theory and practice of Kanban, and I would highly recommend that people read it if you're even thinking of implementing Kanban. If you want a little more detail, but not too much, read the Kanban Pocket Guide. And finally, get yourself trained by someone who knows what they're talking about when it comes to Kanban. Or alternatively, you could get yourself trained by me, since conveniently I'm running a training course on Kanban next Monday and Tuesday. So if anyone happens to be able to book a training course at 1 week's notice and get time off, there's a special discount for Agile Tour Vilnius attendees. But if you can't make it to that course, or if you can't get training, there are multiple other trainers available, and you can check them out on the Pro Kanban website. There are a lot of really good trainers there who can teach you this stuff really well. So now you've got the basics of what Kanban is, a strategy for optimizing the flow of value through a process. Your next step, recognize that having a board is just one part of Kanban. Many teams that think they're doing Kanban, they go no further than just putting sticky notes on a board or having a Jira board, and that's kind of where it stops. You're just visualizing the board, but that's pointless if it doesn't help you improve what you do. So what else can we do? Well, Kanban has 3 practices, and defining and visualizing the workflow, as you can see, is only one of those. The other 2 are equally as important, if not more so. You actually have to actively manage items in your workflow, and you have to improve your workflow as well. So you can't just do, we'll create a board, put sticky notes on it, and that's it. It's a lot more than that. What does actively managing items in your workflow actually mean? Now, one of the main techniques, and the one you probably heard of, is limiting your work in progress, or WIP, as we call it. If you don't have some kind of limit on the amount of work in progress on your board, the amount of work that you started but not finished, you won't see any benefits at all from doing Kanban. And your team will probably look a bit like this, horribly stressed and overworked and just general chaos. There are many ways you can limit work in progress. We don't have time to go into them all today. Many teams start by just adding limits on their Jira board columns. That's okay, you can do it if you want to, but it's not always the most effective way of doing things. And we'll look at that soon in an example. So first practice is limit your work in progress. If you're not paying attention to the age of your work in progress, then you're also not actively managing the work in progress. But what is this aging work in progress? It's work that you've started, but that hasn't finished yet. It's that kind of work that just sticks around your board for weeks or months on end, and whoever started working on it is just got bored and forgotten about it and moved on to something far more interesting. So paying attention to aging work in progress means you stop starting, start finishing. In other words, don't start a new piece of work until you've finished what's already in progress. And focus on getting the oldest work on your board finished, because when you started that work, it was your highest priority at that time. So it still should be your highest priority work to get finished. So stop starting, start finishing. And to succeed in actively managing items in your workflow, you absolutely have to focus on unblocking blocked work. Or even better, you stop it getting blocked in the first place. Now, we've all seen those Jira tickets that start off full of hope, full of promise, and about 2 days into the sprint, they get blocked, and then they just sit there blocked for the rest of the sprint. Maybe due to dependency on another team, or there's numerous reasons why something could be blocked, needs approval from someone else or whatever. So where do blocked work items go to die, folks? Blocked work items go to die in the blocked column. And again, I've seen this numerous times when I've gone into teams, they have a blocked column. It's a telltale sign of zombie Kanban. We don't have time to go in depth in why a blocked column is a bad idea, but if you have one on your board, I would highly recommend that you look at getting rid of it. So there are a couple of things you can do to minimize the effect of blocked work items. So you can look at the work before you start it. And if you think you might have a dependency, you don't start the work until you've tried to minimize that dependency or remove it if you can. But in the real world, things are always going to get blocked. So when they do, make sure your team swarms on them to get them unblocked and moved on as quickly as possible. Again, think about it. When you started these work items, they were your highest priority. So it should be your highest priority to finish them. And our final practice is improving the workflow. You'll never succeed at doing real Kanban if you don't use what your board is telling you to improve your process. I've lost count of the number of teams where I've come in and helped them visualize their work on a board, and you come back a few months later and the board is exactly the same. They haven't changed anything, their metrics haven't improved, and they've made no change whatsoever. Kanban is there to make visible where the problems are in the flow of work through your process. Use those signals that your Kanban board is giving you to allow you to reduce those issues and to drive that continuous improvement that we talked about earlier. So Kanban, as you can hopefully see here, it requires a lot of discipline, and it's much more than just visualizing work items on a Jira board. Step 3 of real Kanban. Without metrics, Kanban is almost pointless. There's no point in doing Kanban if you're not going to pay attention to the metrics that it gives you. There are loads of metrics that you can use in Kanban to help us actively manage items in the workflow and improve it. But very few teams that I've seen ever actually make any use of them to help drive improvement. To help you today, there's 2 very simple metrics that can get you started. Number 1, cycle time. Cycle time is basically the length of time it took for an item to move from started to be finished. And we add on 1 day since you can't have 0 days. That's it. That's all you need to calculate. And it should be easy to keep a record of this for every item. Even if you do it in a spreadsheet, that's fine. But why do we care about this cycle time? Because it allows us to answer this question, when will it be done? When we aggregate a lot of data over a time period, we can use that historical data to forecast what might happen in the future and generate what's called a service level expectation, which helps us answer that question of when will it be done with actual data. In this example from one of my teams that I'm working with at the moment, we can see that over the past 3 months or so, which is your x-axis, they completed a lot of work items. But if we look over here, it might be hard to see on the screen. What this tells us is they completed 85% of those items in 10 days or less. So if we have a stakeholder that comes to us asking when their thing will be done, we can say to them, once we start work on it, it will be done in 10 days or less with an 85% certainty. If they're not happy with 85%, we can say, right, we're 95% sure we'll have it done within 20 days or less. And this took no effort at all, folks. It's really simple to do. So this is your first metric, cycle time. And as I mentioned before, one of the things we want to do is to stop work aging on our board. And the way to work out WIP age is take the start date of the item away from today's date and again add 1 day. It's really simple. And you can do this again on a spreadsheet or whatever way you want to. Why does this matter, this WIP age? It helps us to see, it helps us to see when work items have been in progress for longer than we would expect them to be, or where a work item is in danger of going over that service level expectation of 85%. This is a different team, so it's 16 days. Which of the items on this chart that I use a fancy tool called Actionable Agile to generate, which of the items on this chart do you think this team should be paying attention to in their stand-ups? That one, top left, yep. The top left one, it's been in progress for a long time. It probably hasn't moved for weeks and weeks. So this gives us a visual indication of, hang on, we want to maybe focus on this particular item to get it done. Or it could be that second one down in the orange. The one in the red could be too far gone. It's always going to fall outside our SLE. It's one item. Do we really care? Just let it go. And it could be that orange one is actually more important than the one that's in the red. So it's great if you have a tool like this to show you your data, but what if you don't? Now, most of the tools that we use in our work are absolutely terrible at tracking this kind of thing. And I had a conversation about Teamhood potentially doing something in this earlier, so good news. Jira is really bad at showing you how old a work item is, and most other tools are exactly the same, to be honest. A couple of examples using Jira that you could try. You add the age of the item, 13 days, to the description, and you then unfortunately have to manually update it every day, but what can you do? Hopefully the benefit outweighs the effort. Or you add some kind of counter to the end of it with your stars, each one representing one day or something like that. So you have some way to visualize how old it is. In the olden days of whiteboards and sticky notes and so on, I've heard an example of a team who put a banana skin on an item whenever they started to work on it. And the more rotten the banana skin was, the older the item was. So you could immediately visualize how old the thing was. Also, when you were in the office, it gave you a really good incentive to get old items moved across your board because it stunk. I didn't do this when it was someone else told me this example. So simple metrics that you can do now and that you don't need a huge amount of understanding. And you can help answer that question about when will it be done and help your team be more predictable. But having said about those metrics, it's important to monitor them. It's important to have a stable and predictable process in Kanban. We have to remember to always put our people first before the process. Remember that your process is operated by people. It's not operated by robots. The people are unpredictable. The work is unpredictable. The world we live in is unpredictable. So never, ever, ever focus so much on metrics that you forget that you're dealing with real people who have lives at home, who have feelings, emotions, hopes, and fears. And just sometimes be comfortable with the fact that you can't predict or estimate everything. And sometimes, even when you do, your estimates will be wrong. You're measuring the performance of the system or the process. You're not measuring the performance of the people who are operating the system or process. If the process is rubbish, it's generally not their fault. And we all know from experience that if you give a manager the chance to weaponize a metric, they will do so. So again, be careful of that. So our fourth point was people before process, sales opportunity. Our fifth point was in zombie Kanban was start where you are now. It's fallen off. Okay. Cool. So it's perfectly okay in real Kanban if where you are now is garbage to start somewhere different. It's perfectly okay to start somewhere different if it makes sense to do that. Now, the three types of change in Lean, you'll have seen if you were in Chris's talk earlier about Kaizen, small incremental change. That's generally good because it's easy to do. But there are other types as well. You can have this Kaikaku change. It's like taking a sledgehammer to your existing process and knocking the rough edges off it or radically reshaping it. You can have Kakushin change, which is burn it all down and try something new. An example of where that might make sense, my team works as individuals. Well, why do you think your team works as individuals? Because you've made them work as individuals. You've siloed them. And people in analysis are going to work in analysis. Developers are going to work in development. Testers are going to work in test. That's just how it happens sometimes. We could start with where we are here and make incremental changes to this, put work in progress limits in some columns, but we could also do this, burn it all down, and have one to-do doing done board, which in this case might actually work. And you set a work in progress limit of 3. And in some ways, that makes the team have to work together as a team and breaks down those silos. So this could be an example where it's okay to not start with where you are now. If it's rubbish, try something massively different. And you get a bonus tip as well here, folks. Here are 5 steps. Kanban's not software development method. The board is only one part of doing Kanban. Without metrics, Kanban is almost pointless. People before process. And it's okay to not start with where you are now. Your bonus tip this time around, Scrum and Kanban are actually best used together. They're not enemies. Your Scrum will have a process within it for how you develop software. Kanban is a strategy for optimizing the flow of value through a process, so therefore you use Kanban on top of your Scrum process to help it work more smoothly. Scrum and Kanban are not exclusive, they're far better together. So a lot of information there today, folks. Thank you for listening. There's a lot to digest, but remember, at the end of the day, this stuff does matter, but there are things in life that are or should be far more important to all of us than any of what I've just said to you. By all means, invest time in improving your Kanban skills and your process and so on, but if you have to choose between investing time in that and investing time in your family, your friends, your own mental well-being, that's far more important than anything that I've said here today. So thank you very much for your time. Do you have any questions for me? If you don't, that's okay.
Yeah, as well, we don't have any question online.
Okay.
So I guess thank you. Oh, we do?
Oh, we do? Oh.
So it just jumped 1 minute ago. Okay, let me check. Technologies.
The question is, can you fix your microphone so it's on correctly? No.
Not unlocking. Maybe you can read?
Maybe it's a zombie question.
So the question is, what should the team do if they've been following Zombie Kanban? What advice would you give them to get out of the cycle?
I would say to them, the first thing to do is, they're not doing anything wrong. Don't blame them. Don't berate them or anything like that. I think the first thing to do is to help them to learn what Kanban is supposed to be. Like I said, we have the Kanban guide there, which is a useful reference, or we have the pocket guide that they could read as well. Or there are plenty of us Kanban coaches out there who would be happy to help teams to try to improve and get themselves out of this zombie Kanban trap. So really, the first thing they should be doing is understanding why they're doing Kanban in the first place. If Kanban is not the right fit for what they're doing, if maybe something like Scrum is more appropriate, think about moving to that. But it's difficult without knowing the exact situation and context, what the best answer to that question is. But those are some of the things that I would consider doing. So thank you for the question, really good question. Yes, Vitas?
Hey, Darren.
Hi, again.
So there was this point about Kanban as well as Scrum not being software development methods. What I find it in Kanban especially, is it treated for software companies or not? Because there is this smell, and this is what I think could change or should change actually. And what do you see yourself? You're a trainer, right? And how much and who actually is interested the most in the Kanban, like industry-wise? I have no doubts. It's technology world, of course. Finance, of course. What else?
I think from our world, just because of where Pro Kanban has positioned itself, it is the software world. But there's no reason why you can't apply this to any process, almost any process that you're using. HR process, recruitment process, it has a start, it has an end, and you want to get the flow going as quickly as possible. So any process that has a start and an end, you can apply Kanban to. And I first started off doing Kanban on a process that wasn't software development. And that's what got me interested in it. And I saw it made a difference. And it, not just because it improved the flow of work through the system, it made the lives of the people on my team so much easier. There was so much less chaos. They were so much more predictable. So I think really like obviously Kanban came from manufacturing originally, so manufacturing's an obvious place for Kanban to work. But really any industry could make use of these Kanban techniques. And they're not hard to do, folks. They're relatively simple to start with, maybe a little bit harder to master, but if you're using any process that starts and finishes, Kanban should be useful for it.
That's bonus question also answered. Why Kanban? But yeah, it's easy to start, maybe harder to master, but anyway.
And it's probably easier than Scrum to start. You can start with where you are now with Kanban. You don't necessarily have to change anything at the time. So that's maybe one reason. Okay. One more question, I think. And then we're finished, correct? Cool.
Yeah, the question is, could we use for multiple teams Kanban, and how to ensure that the value stream will be stopped with the first team because of, different approaches of what should be done, definition of done, of ready, etc.
It's a difficult one. You can use Kanban for multiple teams. They can have their own boards, or you can aggregate the stuff up into a higher level board and use Kanban principles on that at something like the epic or feature or initiative level. You can use the same techniques at that level as well, or even at a strategy level, you can use Kanban techniques up there. I would never try and force one Kanban process on multiple teams. I would let the teams figure out their own process themselves, define that, visualize it themselves. But they have to have rules. Obviously, for the thing to start and finish, you have to define what finish actually means. And it may vary between teams, but I would leave that to the teams to very much decide for themselves and then iterate on and improve. Okay, I think that's our time up, Louisa, correct? So thank you very much, everyone. It's been great being here, so thank you very much.